All right, I think we're good to go. Good day to everyone, and welcome to the month of March ADI webinar. My name is Tehila Chimfwembe-Chilofia, and I'll be your moderator for this session. It's wonderful to see you all joining. I see so many familiar names, and I should really commend you all for joining in month by month. But if this is your first time, we also hope that you will be joining us for the next coming months. It's really wonderful to see various people dialing in from different parts of the globe, and we really don't take that for granted. And we're going to be pretty much reflecting on the shared importance of livestock development and sustainable agriculture. So today's discussion will focus on the role of livestock in improving livelihoods, ensuring food security, and strengthening resilience in the agricultural sector in Southern Africa. But before we begin, I'd like to go through a few housekeeping rules. Please just be aware that we'll be recording the session. Kindly keep your microphones, as you obviously know, muted to just avoid any disruptions. If you've got any questions, please feel free to drop them in the question and answer box or in the chat, and we'll address them during our Q&A session, which will be most likely after the presentation. We also encourage you to engage in the chat, so feel free to introduce yourselves and let us know where you are dialing in from. For those who are not quite familiar with ADI, just as a quick introduction, the Southern Africa Accelerated Innovation Delivery Initiative, ADI, Rapid Delivery Hub, is a rapid response project helping smallholder farmers cope with the rising cost of fuel, fertilizer, and food. So it is implemented by CIMMYT and the International Fertilizer Development Center, IFDC, and ADI operates in Malawi, it operates in Zambia, Tanzania, as well as the Katanga region of the DRC. And we focus on scaling up agricultural innovations that improve in productivity and resilience. So the initiative works through public, private, and civil society partnerships to fast-track solutions that are ready for broader adoption, ensuring that smallholder farmers get the tools and the support that they need. And today's webinar is really part of this effort to equip farmers, to equip researchers, as well as policymakers with knowledge and innovations that can drive sustainable development in the livestock sector. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker for today's session. Dr. Dixon Pele is a veterinarian and a livestock development expert with over 18 years of experience in working in the livestock sector. His work has focused on managing and developing strategies to improve livestock production, to enhance disease control, to establish markets, and to address public health concerns, all with the goal of strengthening rural livelihoods. So he currently serves as the International Livestock Research Livestock Coordinator in Zambia. And under the ADI project, he's leading efforts to scale up sustainable livestock practices and improve market access for smallholder farmers. And with that, it's really my pleasure to hand the floor over to Dr. Dixon for his presentation, which is titled Sustainable Village Chicken Production, a Gateway to Economic Emancipation for Rural Communities. Over to you, Dr. Pele. Thank you.
Thank you. Tehila. Good afternoon, everyone. It's 2:35 p.m. Is that correct? Somewhere there in Zambia. I'm not too sure how many are joining us in the US, Australia, but basically it's good afternoon on this end. So good morning on the other end, and possibly good evening. Tehila, I may need to remove the turn on my video just in case I have internet connection problems, so that it's consistent flow in the presentation. Is that okay?
That's perfectly okay. I'll just ask that you're slightly louder so that we can hear you.
Okay.
As some words were getting swallowed up, but you're free to switch off your camera to just ensure connectivity is smooth. Thanks.
Excellent. I hope that's audible enough, is it? Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, so welcome everyone. We are basically going to look at sustainable livelihood, sustainable village chicken production, and like Tahila said, the title basically is a gateway to economic emancipation for rural communities. We'll kind of do this a little different in the sense that as we go through the presentation, if maybe after 3, 4 slides somewhere there, I'll probably request that we get questions from your end. If you have any questions, we make this a little more interactive. Yeah. So I'll basically just introduce this. After introducing this, I'll kind of head back to kind of explain what we refer to when we talk about sustainable village chicken production. Just as in Tehila's remarks, the livestock element under the Southern Africa Accelerated Innovation Delivery Initiative, which is, of course, like I say, the livestock component, serves as a private sector-led women and youth focused on livestock-based intervention that is improving food and nutrition security and rural incomes through poultry in Zambia and Tanzania. So I'll go back just so that we have a full understanding of what we are referring to when we talk about sustainable village chicken production, and why are we saying it's a gateway to economic emancipation for rural communities. So the first question is, what is it? So sustainable village chicken production basically refers to a type of poultry farming that will prioritize environmental, social, and economic sustainability. Basically, its approach aims to, if you can promote the well-being of people, animals, and the environment while you're producing the high-quality chicken products. What are the key principles under sustainable village chicken production? You have environmental sustainability. This basically focuses on, minimizing environmental impact of the chicken production process. You're focusing on conserving water and promoting biodiversity. Then you have animal welfare. This basically focuses on ensuring that you have humane treatment and care for chickens, including providing access to fresh water, fresh air, nutritious feed. Then the social responsibility as a principle, um, you're basically looking at supporting local communities, promoting fair and labor, practices, and contributing to rural development. Then you have the important one, which is economic viability. This one just basically ensures that you have long-term financial sustainability of chicken production, including reducing costs, increasing efficiency, and promoting market access. Sustainable village chicken production the process has specific characteristics, and these include small scale production. And under small scale production, you are typically, looking at small scale flocks, small scale production. Basically, it's a small number of chickens. This is often managed by, family farmers or basically a small scale producer. Then you have free range or supplemented systems. Supplemented systems, you are looking at, allowing chickens to roam freely outdoors, promoting exercise, exposure to sunlight, and basically foraging behavior. When we look at using or use of locally available natural resources, here we are looking at use of, say, if you're going to put a hedge around your chickens, the roaming area, you make that roaming area from, for example, bamboo, if that's what's very available around you. The use of farm produce or chicken waste as a locally available resource to grow your chickens. Then you have minimum use of antibiotics and chemicals. This is very important. This avoids the use of antibiotics and chemicals, and instead of promoting natural health and disease prevention measures. You have the community involvement and participation. This is one reason why the ADI project picked this as a tool to facilitate economic or enhancement within rural communities. It encourages communities to engage, with as they are being trained through capacity building and also to support sustainable chicken production practices. The next question is, what are the benefits of a sustainable village chicken production process? What's beneficial about it? Firstly, it increases social responsibility. This is a very important piece, but the question is, how does it, how does it increase social responsibility? Well, everyone who is involved in the process then ends up having, as they are attending trainings, as they are trying to purchase either drugs to treat their flock, as they're trying to access more birds, they have to engage with other farmers within the community so that they have an increased buying power. Then you have improved animal welfare. With improved animal welfare, this promotes humane treatment basically and care of chickens. Economic viability, like we mentioned earlier, this is really important because the money that basically the chickens bring. Then you have high quality source of chicken products. A chicken is a good source of meat, meat-based protein, and also it gives you the eggs, which will give you the protein as well. Now, on the extreme right of the slide, I wanted us to have an understanding of why and how sustainable village chicken production would enhance economic or bring about economic emancipation. It's the process. The process itself of producing it is a low-cost production process. Buying of chicks from the hatcheries. You're using a chick basically is very cheap. I'll maybe use the Zambian context, and here it's about 12 kwacha, which is probably which is less than $1 right now to get a chick. So that buying process in itself is very cheap. Then you have what we have already spoken about. We said, you are going to use free range or supplemented systems. So the systems you employ in the production process are very low in terms of cost. You then have, on the other end, reduced mortality. So if you have reduced mortalities within your flock because of biosecurity measures, possibly that you have put up, your vaccination regime is up to date. The number of birds that would die will be less than the ones that will survive, and hence, and because of your good production process, you have multiplication within your flock, so that will increase the production itself will increase. Because buying a chick is cheap, you may also increase on your flock by buying more birds. That will give you enough birds then to take to the market for sale and also for consumption, remembering the fact that this project is also looking at enhancing nutrition within households. So as a village chicken producer, you will have enough to take to the market, make your money, and then also kill some for your consumption, and then also for your eggs. So I thought we needed to just have an understanding of why we are talking about the sustainable village chicken production and how basically it's a gateway to emancipating financial issues within communities. With that background, the project with that understanding. The project then decided that we are basically going to use village chickens to, enhance nutritional needs within communities and then also increase incomes. This was based on, what I have there on the slide. Rural households in both Zambia and Tanzania face food and nutrition insecurity and unsustainable incomes, resulting in nutrition and children. 70% of these households are involved in some form of livestock keeping. And, the sector plays a substantial role in the agriculture GDP, contributing about 26% in Tanzania and 42% in Zambia. Within the sector itself, we noted that poultry production, especially chickens, has a potential for growth. But this has been limited by a number of factors relating to poor poultry keeping practices and challenges arising from failure to access improved feeds, failure to access quality feed, and also inavailability or failure to access essential vaccines. So as we go through the presentation, it's important for me to mention from start now that we're going to try and show how the project has managed to set up and use this village chicken production process to help emancipate or increase rural incomes and enhance nutrition. So the main goal for the project, basically, like I mentioned, is improve productivity, availability of poultry meat and eggs in households and markets. Then also increase income generation at household level through sale of poultry meat and eggs. It's EDI livestock approach. Basically, we are trying to use a sustainable lens, and the whole process is basically trying to promote increased access to breeds. Number one, two, provide bundled advisory services. Bundled advisory services, basically, you're looking at services that will help the farmers be able to access either information, access vaccines, access market, and any other information relating to production processes. We are looking at livestock financing. With this aspect, we are not necessarily giving loans or money to livestock farmers or possible poultry producers, but instead grouping them in what we're calling poultry production groups, poultry development groups. And these poultry development groups are then linked to VCLs, village savings groups, group of people coming together and start, saving money as a group and be able to access resource from those savings. Vaccination of birds and also, provide new poultry farm technologies. The strategic goals are basically structured around strengthening the strategic partnerships that we have identified that will be very cardinal in the whole process. That's number one, livestock, local veterinary and livestock departments, the hatcheries themselves that provide the chicks, local agrovets and feed suppliers, local agrovets who basically supply drugs of treatment, and possibly necessary feed that some farmers will need, and if they have the money to go and purchase. Links with the poultry commercial farmers. These always bring in a buying in effect within a community. So if, say, for example, the poultry commercial farmer orders birds from one of the hatcheries that we have here in Zambia is hybrid. Our farmers can then, if they are linked with this commercial farmer, they can ride on the back of this commercial farmer and be able to get their small number of birds purchased through the commercial farmer. Most importantly is the Poultry Association. This is associations within Zambia and Tanzania that basically look at the welfare of poultry farmers, market development, basically ease of production processes. So, like I said, these strategic goals that I will look at, they are really structured around strengthening these partnerships. The first strategic goal is expand access to improved breeds of dual-purpose bucket feeder chickens, commercial broilers, and layers through private sector agribusiness providing bundled advisory services and inputs. That's number one. Number two, basically reduce morbidity and mortality of poultry by facilitating access to vaccination of poultry against, economically impactful poultry diseases. This we're using media advisory campaigns for vaccines, health, hygiene, and production. The third one is support cost share of startups and scale-ups in poultry production and marketing of locally produced poultry meat and eggs. These are the strategic goals. In the implementation process, we have focused on implementing an entrepreneurship ecosystem, using an entrepreneurship ecosystem approach. This one basically promotes market systems that are beneficial to all the actors within the poultry value chain. So I'll give examples of you have on one end a brooder, on the other end you have a hatchery, and then on top you have the poultry groups that I spoke about earlier, the poultry development groups. It's a give and take. The hatchery is depending on the brooder to order birds to brood the chicks on behalf of the poultry producing groups. And the brooder in turn also depends on the poultry producing groups to buy the chicks off them. Basically, then that creates a sustainable chain. And none of them sits without money flowing. There will be money flowing from the brooder to the hatchery, from the hatchery to the brooder, from the brooder to the poultry producing groups or the farmer, and vice versa. With under EDI, I think as Tehila mentioned earlier in the introduction, this livestock program is basically, it has targeted two countries, Tanzania and Zambia currently. In Zambia, we are in the Copperbelt, Lusaka, and Central Province. And then in Tanzania, it's Kondoa, Chamwino, Kongwa, Papua. These are all districts in Dodoma. Just to give us a picture of what our targets are. In Zambia, we are focusing on reaching out to 15,000 small-scale poultry keeping households. The idea is to enhance them with access to dual-purpose bucket feeder chickens. We want to work with 80 commercial poultry farmers, support them with supplies and capacity development. We want to reach out to 150 women and youth brooders and vendors, supported in business orientation and profitability. Then ultimately, reach out to 375,000 youth and women with agriculture advisory messages through mass media. In Tanzania, we have a target of 18,000 smallholder households, reaching them through private sector-led women and youth-focused innovations in the poultry production process. Then also reach out to 400,000 households through media campaigns. Finally, 80 women and youth brooders and vendors also to be supported in business orientation and profitability. In terms of achievement as it stands as of today, in Zambia, we have hit 12,991 dual-purpose producers. These are the small-scale farmers, the target farmers that we were talking about. These ones have been trained in poultry husbandry with enhanced access to dual-purpose bucket chicks. We have distributed 165 day-old chicks to 108 brooders. Remember, we were saying we're using an entrepreneurship ecosystem approach. So this brooder, once they have these birds sitting on their farm and they're brooding them, then they are able to call in dual purpose producers, this the target farmer to come get chicks from them at 30 days old. We have reached 147 brooders as it stands, and these have been equipped with information and actual training to equip them and be able to brood the 165 chicks that we have distributed. We have 975 poultry development groups formed, and these poultry development groups have been arranged in 158 clusters. Remember, we were saying it is important that we enhance linkages between between these farmers, the small scale producers, and agrovets, um, uh, uh, the access to finance, and this can only be done if they are grouped in what we are calling clusters. So we have 158 clusters formed this far. We have reached out through media advisory campaigns to 42,864 people. We are using a platform called it's run by a partner called Viamo. So Viamo basically means via mobile. We have reduced mortality rates from a baseline of 32% to 3% as it stands. And this obviously is because of the information dissemination that has taken place. It's because of the training that has taken place. Farmers are basically vaccinating their birds now. They have biosecurity measures set up and all that. So that has helped reduce the mortality rate of 32% to 3%. In Tanzania, we have 80 mother units we have partnered with 80 mother units, and these have been trained in brooding practices. So just as we're doing in Zambia, in Tanzania, we have 80 of these that we're calling mother units. Basically, they're just brooders that are brooding the day-old chicks that have been distributed. And these chicks distributed so far are at 34,803. These are meant to be brooded up to about 30 days, and post that, the poultry producing, the dual purpose producing farmers themselves go and collect from the breeders. We have reached out to 3,592 farmers trained in poultry husbandry, and just as in Zambia, we're working with Biamo in Tanzania as well, and so far have reached to 5,155 people through advisory messaging. And we have 240 community development officers. This 240 is basically people, and this is encompassing our community development officers, community health workers, livestock and agri extension officers, agripreneurs, and agents. Basically, all these have been trained as nutrition trainers. So that's the picture as it stands in terms of achievements on the project. Again, I will remind you, the project is basically trying to enhance nutrition and basically enhance livelihoods. And the livelihoods basically is looking at nutrition as well as income generation within the households. But it's got to have a sustainable approach. And this is what we have done so far. In terms of future direction, maybe before I go to future direction, I don't know, are there any questions that people may have at this point? Like I said, it would be nice if we have this a little interactive, so that in case I lost you somewhere, we can get on the same bus. Tahila, are there any questions that you see?
Hi, yes, we've got one question from Jonathan, and it reads, impressed to see the reduction in chicken mortality in Zambia from 32 to 3%. I also think that's pretty commendable. What about the mortality reduction in Tanzania? Also, since you're using the entrepreneur approach, could you comment on any data emerging in terms of profitability. Should I read that last part? So
Yes,
since you're
please.
using the entrepreneur approach, okay, so first of all, we want to find out what's the mortality reduction in Tanzania, as we have noticed that of Zambia dropped from 32 to a whopping 3%. And then the follow-up question is, since you're using the entrepreneur approach, could you comment on any data in terms of profitability?
Okay, thank you. So in terms of reduction, mortality rate reductions in Tanzania, um, I would have to get that actual number, but last we checked, it was at 5%. Let me just reconfirm that number and give an actual value, but it sits at 5%. That's in terms of what the mortality rate now. The mortality rate then was high. It was way above 30%. We can reconfirm those figures. When we look at data regarding um, profitability, it's actually very interesting to note that I'll kind of like use the Zambian context. It's interesting to note that it would take you um, about 4,000 kwacha. 4,000 kwacha is almost close to is it how much is 4,000 kwacha tequila in dollar terms?
In
I think
dollars,
the dollar
4,000 quarters should be just below 50, but let me just check.
it's about it's about $140 somewhere there, if I'm not mistaken. Just check that for me. But it would cost you that much to raise the 350 birds. That's if you have 4,000 kwacha. But these
Yeah,
farmers
it's
that
about
we're dealing with,
140.
it's about 140. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, but these farmers we're working with, we are encouraging them to go as low as they can as a start and keep improving on the numbers as they grow. So we've encouraging these farmers to start with a small number like 10 and keep building to when it gets to about 50. The break-even point basically would be about 25 birds. So we've started them around 10 and taking them up. So you find it will then cost about 1,000 kwacha to raise 100 birds as opposed to the 4,000 for that number of birds. With that, we've noted then that when you sell your birds um, to the market price of a village chicken is about 180. It's between 180 and 200 kwacha. In terms of in dollar form, 200 is about $7, and the cost of production per bird is less than $1. So you are probably making about $7 off um, one bird, and your profit margin would then sit at about close to 5.8 to $5.9. That to me is very encouraging. That to me is good in the sense that the farmer is assured that if I produce this number of birds, I'm assured of this amount of income. And that's the reason we have this approach where we are now we are teaching them, giving them information on how to produce these birds at a bare minimum in terms of cost. Is there any other questions, Davina?
Yes, we've got another question in the chat, and this is from Akpo. He says, "Great talk. Why village chickens and not improved breeds? Is there any justification of such a choice?"
I like that question. When we talk about, it's always this. There's always this talk around village chickens. What is a village chicken? What is an improved breed? I would probably tell you that most of what we are now terming or calling village chickens basically they are improved breeds. And one of the breeds that we are advocating for or propagating, as it may sound now, is the Corolla breed, because everyone is used at this particular during like now they're used to seeing the traditional village chicken that has different colors. It has some brown, it has some gray, it has some white, and but that traditional chicken, which I barely, it would be hard to actually find one now that exists, or go to areas or communities where you will find that indigenous a bird. It may be a bit difficult, and so that would be hard for us to propagate. It would be hard for our farmers to go and find that specific indigenous breed. And so we have used these hybrids, these improved breeds. They are coming from the village chicken. They're basically just improved breeds. And these are the ones that we are propagating. And in line with the question, maybe a comment to that would be these breeds grow faster, and I know why you asked that question. So they grow faster, and within 6 months, they have a bird that's weighing about between 2.7 and maybe 3 kgs. That's good for the market.
Thank you. We've
Yeah.
also got
Any
a
other
hand up
question?
we've got a hand
Okay.
up from Joachim. I'm not too sure how much more you need to cover with
No.
regards to
Well,
presentation.
maybe what we do is maybe we can have Joachim, come through, and then I can run through the other remaining bits of the presentation.
Okay, so
Then we
let's
can
hear
have
from
this open
Joachim. Then
conversation. Yeah.
I've also seen a question from Cleo. Cleo will answer your question towards the end of the presentation. But Joachim, Mambwe, please do take it away. Just you can switch on your mic if you don't mind, your camera as well, and you can go ahead with your question.
I
Joachim,
can't
are
hear
you?
Joachim. Is he there? Okay.
Okay, I think maybe let's proceed with the presentation. If he gets back in, I'm sure he'll be able to ask his question. And Cleo, thank you so much for your question. I've taken note and we'll be attending to that after the presentation. Thanks.
Excellent. So in terms of the future direction, our efforts are all literally hovering around ensuring that we have sustainable linkages across the poultry value chain to benefit our target group, the poultry producing groups. Then we are also, focusing on ensuring that farmers appreciate the economic value that poultry brings onto the table, if they do their production processes correctly, and then also giving it an emphasis on women and youth participation. That's obvious. In home states, I think nutrition starts from the kitchen, and in the African culture, um, our women are the best in the kitchen. So we want to ensure that they have full participation in knowing what they're taking in the kitchen to cook and feed their families. Youth, basically, we want to make sure that our youth are empowered and they're able to achieve their dreams. So our direction is basically ensuring that we enroll these agripreneurs and the breeders onto a platform called the Kuza platform. This is a platform that's established by Kuza Biashara, and they try and help to facilitate business training, and they also maintain sustainable linkages across the poultry value chain. So there's training for the farmers that are enrolled on this platform, business training. We want to continue with the dissemination of advisories around vaccination of poultry through the Viamo media platform to reach out to the 400,000 people. I think in our target, we mentioned that we want to hit 400,000 people. And the Viamo platform so far, it has done an excellent job. We have reached out, like I said, to close to 42,864. We want to continue facilitating poultry market days for market enhancement and further disseminate poultry vaccination production information. Why? I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'll re-emphasize it. Why are we consistently talking about vaccination? It's because we know that it's the only way we can prevent poultry, many of the poultry diseases, basically poultry diseases that are of economic importance. We also want to provide video-based poultry production training material. We are working with Munda Makeover. This is another company or organization that does video-based training. I think they then post on YouTube and other social media platforms where people can learn. So we want to provide this training through that platform, and also set it up on national TV channels across both Tanzania and Zambia. Most importantly, we want to continue providing nutrition information at household level. Remember from start, we spoke about sustainable village chicken production and how it would, enhance economic stability within a household, but also the nutritional component. If we have healthy people, healthy children coming from households, then we know that they are strong enough to go and do other work out there, and they'll probably achieve their dreams. So we want to make sure that we are providing the nutrition information across the implementation process. We surely have faced a few challenges, and these challenges we've learned a few things from them as we have come up with solutions and how to deal with them. So I'll share a few challenges that we faced, and this basically sit across most nations that are within our region. We had increased feed costs due to the drought that we experienced, and to mitigate this, the solution we had basically was to emphasize during training using locally available materials for feed production, to feed their birds. Balanced feed. You use locally available materials to come up with feed that's well balanced to feed the birds. Second challenge was limited methods, basically, to disseminate vaccine and poultry production information in rural areas. I think this is a challenge that most projects basically will face as they try to disseminate information in rural areas. With us, we thought it's the reason basically we engaged Viamo and Munda Makeover to disseminate vaccination and production information through mobile phones, social platforms, and national TV. This has, like we have noted in our achievements so far, of 42,840 people reached with that information, and this is continuing right through the end of the project. We had to deal with traditional norms of keeping village chickens, and I'll probably mention one or a few basically. One of the norms, traditional norms, is birds are for women. Birds are for girls in a home state. So men basically are not involved in the production process. They'll probably just be looking at goats or large animals like cattle and going farming and all that. And so they leave the birds for the girls, the young girls to look at, which is a good thing. But on the other hand, you realize that the young boys are also left out. So they if we can have them included in the whole process, and if it is a family thing, because if only the young girls are doing it, when it comes to looking at the income that is generated from there, that's when the father pops up and say, hey, this was the amount that was made. let me have this money, I will give you just this bit, and then he uses it for something else. So to deal with that, and then also, we had issues around how birds are being kept. Traditionally, birds that would just be left out there to roam around and maybe sleep in trees because they're birds after all. So to mitigate that and change that mindset, we're conducting training sessions on brooder farms or business model farms where all farmers will come and learn from there and have a practical experience as you're explaining why this bird has got to be housed, why you need to have this. They are able to see and appreciate that. Limited access to improved breeds. Yes, this was a huge challenge, and to help mitigate that, we created links between the poultry development groups that we formed with and cluster and arranged in clusters with the hatcheries. Here in Zambia, we are dealing with we've dealt with two hatcheries, Hybrid and Heartland. So these two, we've linked our poultry development groups that have been arranged in clusters with the two hatcheries for supply of these improved breeds. Limited access to poultry vaccines. Yes, we do recognize that every country and more importantly, the two countries that we are currently working in, we do have government beds or government structures that assist in providing veterinary services and livestock development services to the small scale farmers. But this chain needed a little bit of re-energizing and reactivation. So we looked at re-energizing and activating the linkages between the local vets, the agro vets, and linking them with the poultry producing groups, so that this facilitation, um, and facilitation for vaccinations, as well as, of course, provision of the vaccine itself. We have post these learnings that we have picked up. We have identified key success factors, factors that will help these farmers run through the whole process of producing this bird or these birds or flock that will enhance their income generation within their households. The first one is basically use of cheap and locally available materials. This is very important because, I mean, we know that um, uh, building structures for poultry can be expensive depending on where you are. So if you are able to access locally available, naturally occurring materials, that will be helpful for housing, biosecurity features, making feeders and water traps, and even making the feed of plants that are naturally occurring um, from your garden. You probably grew groundnuts and you have the husks that you then pick and help put them in the feed. We have also identified that if a farmer focuses on growing their chickens in a batch system, that will be very helpful because then it creates a chain. So you have birds today that are day olds. Um, you also, in the same day, you have a few birds that are 30-day old. And if possible, you also have birds that are 3 or 4 months old. At the time that the ones that are 3 or 4 months old are ready for the market, which is basically 6 months, you will not be in a place where you have nothing to sell or no food, or no birds to kill and access poultry meat and possibly eggs. But if you batch them up, grow them in a batch system, then that will be helpful. Record keeping is really key. We identified this as a very key component so that they are able to know at what age are these birds, when were they vaccinated, when should they be vaccinated, what antibiotic or what treatment regime did we implement or did we apply on this set of birds, and where was the withdrawal period? Those kinds of things. I think it is really, really important. It also helps them know, okay, this bird is 6 months old now, and it's going to start, it's at point of lay, or how many eggs has this bird given us? Basically, all the important aspects of record keeping. Then we identify that having active poultry development groups is key. As we mentioned earlier, these poultry development groups are linked to um, clusters, and the clusters, including the poultry development groups themselves, are then linked to hatcheries, basically providers of services. It is easy for a farmer to access a particular service, either be it training or vaccination, if they are in a group, because it will be cheaper for them, unlike if they're doing it on their own. And these factors, we sediment them by focusing on the fact that active links between PDGs, hatcheries, local vet, and the market is really important. We need to have consistent information dissemination on poultry vaccination and production practices. We also need to make sure that we have a consistent flow of vaccines and also the vaccination service being provided to the farmers. Market for the poultry meat and eggs is key. Why produce the bird that you can't sell? You are increasing the numbers, and possibly it's a challenge for you to even look after these birds, and probably have so many eggs, and you can only eat so much anyway, but you can't sell. So it's important we have a market for them. Household nutrition information dissemination, another key part. It's important that these households understand or have full understanding of the nutritional needs of every person within their household at whatever stage, and they're able to provide the necessary food for their household. And through these birds, there's at least the protein, the meat protein aspect, where they will access it from the bird itself and from the eggs. And through sale, they are able to go and buy the other needs, nutritional needs that the household requires. As we have been implementing, obviously, we have also seen areas of improvement, areas where we have opportunities to improve on. I basically thought of sharing two most important ones, which is increase business case training programs and facilitate local shows to enhance adoption of improved poultry production methods. We know that chickens can, help our farmers. We know it's a source of income. We know it's a source of good nutrition. However, we have to make sure that in every training that we are conducting, the business aspect is embedded, so that it becomes sustainable. Otherwise, they will start and stop in the middle of the whole process. That's an opportunity that requires that take advantage of and ensure that every training we're conducting, we're having a business case placed on the table. The second one is with respect to sustainability. Livestock programs surely require more time to implement and monitor effectively the production processes, the consumption, and sale for income generation. We know crops may be different. Of course, crops are different from the livestock livestock programs. With livestock, you need to ensure, first of all, that there's production before people start consuming. So production processes must be followed. And post production, then they can consume, but they need to consume enough only, and leave enough to ensure that they are able to sell. That takes time. With poultry, I think you've picked the fact that I've mentioned. It takes about 6 months to grow these improved feeder chickens. But as a project or as a program, you don't stop there. You want to see them consume. You want to see the eggs produced at after 6 months. You want to see the eggs consumed as well, and also hatched. How is the hatchability? How is the hatching rate for this set of birds? Should we change? Should we do what? I think it's important that livestock programs are given a little more time. I think it's an area where improvement basically needs to happen. So with these areas of improvement, I think our call to our partners and donors, as in the last statement, is for more funding for expanded support to women and youth within and beyond areas of current implementation, just so we ensure that there is proper and economic emancipation through keeping the village chickens. This basically was my last slide. I think we do now have enough time for us to have conversations, and probably Tahila, we can go back to the last question, and then we can pick up the other questions that that probably people may have now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Pillay. I think it's just been a very insightful session, very informative, and there's so many elements of this that we can learn from and ask questions from, as we can already see with the number of comments and questions we have. So Joachim left a comment, and it reads, "Great presentation, Doctor, especially on the break-even production cost. Indeed, with this, it's really sustainable for the rural community." And I absolutely agree with that.
Great.
We've also got two questions coming in from the Atubandika team, and I actually expected these, especially once you started talking about advisories. So the first one was from Cleo, and this is a follow-up question on the mortality rate. And I know you partly answered it after we had the first question and answer.
The first question.
Yes, when we were talking about Viamo, as well as, is it Munda makeover? Yes.
Yes.
So what factors have contributed to the reduction of the mortality rate? Is there a distribution of essential vaccines to the farmers? Or maybe it's the raising of knowledge in what type of vaccines to use and when to use them?
Yeah, I think it's all of that. It's basically all of that. And as we have mentioned, as we mentioned in the presentation, it's first of all identification of what sort of vaccines are required, um, 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 for birds to be vaccinated in a specific area. And we, like I mentioned, linked our farmers with the local veterinary departments, and local veterinary departments will give the information on what sort of diseases are prevalent in those areas. Here, we have the common ones where, as long as you're keeping a bird, you basically need to vaccinate the birds against Newcastle, against Gumboro, against coryza, and fowl pox at a certain age. So it's that information. Farmers are given that information, and they are linked to veterinary departments, who then provide the vaccination services. And in terms of access to vaccine itself, yes, it is important that they have the access to vaccine. And what has happened now in the whole process is that all our farmers have links now to access vaccines. We haven't bought, we're not buying vaccines to give the farmers, but we're linking them to where they can access the vaccines and the vaccination services. This has tremendously contributed to the reduction in the mortality rate. And we know that if we drop the ball now and stop providing this information, then with time people will forget, and eventually the mortality will start going up again. In the Zambian context, it will be hard for you to go through communities and not find a village chicken. Basically, almost everyone has kept a village chicken before, but then you would wonder why the numbers have never increased. I mean, if 50-year-old man now grew up at a home where they were keeping chickens, how is it that he doesn't have a single chicken now, just basically have two or three? it's that information, production processes. How do you produce? How do you ensure that they are um, uh, protected from disease? How do you give them the right feed? How do you um, treat and dispose of birds basically that die in that sense? So um, in her question, I think the answer basically is there, and I'm agreeing with the answer. It's basically the information dissemination that has taken place, and we will continue basically to do that.
Thank you so much. Honestly, that's pretty encouraging, especially with various initiatives that hinge largely on information awareness, information dissemination. It's really
Correct.
encouraging to
Correct.
see such reception and such feedback, especially where you can even back it up with data. And
Correct.
I've got one more question from Brian. It reads, how is the dissemination rather being carried out with VIAMO? Is it through SMS or IVR? Additionally, how is the targeting determined for who receives these advisories?
That's an excellent question. So dissemination of this information is IVR, and we have provided the information that VIAMO needs to send out there. First and foremost, we made sure that in our project areas, um, all our farmers have access to that information. So we ensure that as we are having these training sessions, we are talking about this information that is existing on that platform, and those that almost according to the research that VIAMO conducted, and the reason why we decided to work with them was that there are more people out there with access to a mobile phone, and so it became easier for us to send this information to them through that platform. Um, so in terms of targeting, we made sure that our target areas first of all have that access, and then because of the fact that we are using national platforms through national mobile providers, Airtel here in Zambia, MTN, um, uh, this case Airtel and MTN. We made sure that they are able to send this information beyond our target areas so that everyone else who has access to a phone and has the code, which is basically a number that one dials to then access information. And like we said, it's IVR. So basically you're being prompted as you go through, and we are able to monitor how many people are listening in, how many people are following through, basically start the session, and how many are ending, getting to the end of the session, how many are dropping out in the middle. And as we then do, like I was saying, as we then do these training sessions, we're encouraging our farmers to go on that platform, and also getting to see if some of this information they're receiving is being implemented on the ground. Is there
Thank
another
you.
question, Tahila?
I think that's it, and we have run over time. But thank you so much. Just as we wrap up today's session, I'd really like to extend my sincere gratitude for your time. Dr. Pillay, I know that you're a
Thank you.
very busy person, and I even know that creating this presentation really took quite a lot of teamwork and team effort from various
Correct,
stakeholders,
correct.
especially those from Tanzania as well. So I would like for you to extend our utmost appreciation to the team.
Lovely.
Thank you for sharing your expertise as well as the valuable findings and experience that you have. I would like to also thank each and every one of you for joining us and engaging in this important conversation. And yes, once again, we see those people who dial in month after month, and we recognize you and we're so grateful for your consistency. Some key takeaways is the fact that livestock development is one of the key drivers to rural livelihoods and food security, both in Zambia and Tanzania, and that innovative, climate smart livestock practices can help build resilience in the face of climate change. So in this webinar, just as a reminder, has been part of a broader conversation under ADI's efforts to support sustainable agriculture and food security. Thank you so much once again for being part of today's discussion. And we look forward to having you in the April edition of the ADI webinar, where we'll be switching it up a bit as we prepare to close out this phenomenal and very impactful project. So until then, take care and have a great afternoon to those who are in my part of the world and to those who are in Mexico, helping us organize these webinars. Good morning to you and good evening to those in the Asian region. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Tahila.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Cheers. My number and email address are there. So any further questions or comments that people may have, please do get in touch. And let's spread the word. Village chickens are good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.